ASAP Elite. Today we have a special show lined up for you with a great interview from former NFL running back, two-time Super Bowl winning coach, and former director of player development for the New Orleans Saints. Allow me the honor of introducing to you not just a mentor, but an all-around great dude, Ricky Porter. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, fellas. I'm looking forward to it.
And Mr. Porter, I just want to say what an honor it is to have you on. We have some really special guests that appear on our show, and one of the things that I was really excited because not only were you a player in the NFL, not only were you a coach in the NFL, but you were also an administrator in the front office, and so we talk about all those different positions, and for our audience, I think the experience and the wisdom that you have is really going to be insightful for them because as you know, right now in the NFL, we have a league that's 75% African American and a front office that doesn't emulate that at all. And so I'm extremely excited, and thank you for blessing us with the privilege of being able to just have an organic conversation.
Yeah, this is a blessing, man.
So thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. So let's get going. Pride of Talladega County, Alabama. How were you introduced to the sport of football?
To be honest with you, Rob, I was introduced to baseball before I was football. Baseball was my love. That was my passion and my dream. Like every kid, I think that realized they might have a little talent was to play professional baseball or professional football. A lot of people ask me this question. How did I pick the school that I went to? Well, it wasn't that I really picked that school, but the thing I want young men to understand is that in the NFL, the scouts or recruiters or whatever you want to call them are paid a lot of money to go out here and beat the bushes and find the talent. And I guess I'm a prime example of that I'll tell kids now that it doesn't matter where you go. Everybody, I want to go to a big school. I want to do this. I want to do that. I truly believe that if you can play the game of football, baseball, whatever sport it is, they will find you. I was found at a small school up in Western Pennsylvania, Slippery Rock University. No one had ever been drafted from that school. I remember I told my mother, I said, I don't want to go to Slippery Rock. I want to play pro football or pro baseball. Nobody's ever played, got drafted from that school or played from that school. And I remember her, rest her soul, I remember she said to me, will you be the first then? And from her lips to God's ears, it happened that way. I think what the biggest thing is, you have to prove that you didn't belong there, that you could play at a higher level. And I think that all came together after I started as a true freshman. And then after my junior year, I was second in the nation in rushing in Division II. And then my senior year, I led the nation in rushing. And that's when all the scouts started coming out. And all of a sudden, it was normal to see, the Cleveland Browns, the LA Rams, the whoever it was, the Baltimore Ravens, or at that time, the Baltimore Colts, coming to the school to see who is this kid up here that's breaking all these records and doing all these things. So that's how the school kind of got put on the map as far as football goes. And the opportunity came my way, and got a chance to get drafted and, played 8 years in the league and loved it.
Yeah, good deal. How many yards did you have that senior season?
I think my senior year, back then we only played 9 games. And I think it was like 1,300 and something yards in 9 games. Yeah, I think it was. It was, but like I said, we didn't play 10-game season back then. It was just a 9-game season, and our team wasn't really good. Back then, we were going to the playoffs and all, so I only played 9 games.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. To lead the nation in anything.
Right, right, at any level. That's good stuff. And so, I mean, the thing is what I heard in that particular and what you said is, one, you had to believe in you, right? Your ability to be able to perform at a high level. And I think that what happens so often is that sometimes as athletes we feel like, well, if we don't, if we're not at the school that gets all of the attention, right, then we won't go, because here's what some athletes will do. They'll go to a bigger school where there's a less likelihood that they'll actually get on the field than go to a school where they'll definitely get plenty of playing time and an ability and an opportunity to really shine, because they want to go to this bigger school. And so the thing is what you've proved, right, is that, one, believing in yourself, and two, I mean, if it's never happened before, you led the nation, second in nation one your junior year, led the nation the next year, took a lot of hard work, right? So if you believe in yourself, you're willing to put in the work, that you can and will get noticed. And I think that is, something that our audience really needs to hear.
And once again, your mom was right.
Yeah. Well, and you said from your mom's lips to God's ear. That says a whole lot about it, especially even just about who you are. So
Right. Well, you take a situation. It's like things have gone full circle. I had aspirations of going to a big school too. I thought I was going to end up at the University of Alabama, with my cousin, who ended up being a first round draft choice, Mike Pitts. He ended up getting drafted by Atlanta, played at Alabama. I thought he and I were going there as kind of a package deal. Well, I got hurt my senior year in high school. I played 4 games my senior year, and I rushed for 675 yards in 4 games. And I remember at that time, Bear Bryant was the head coach, and he talked to me, and he basically said, hey, he wanted me to walk on, and said, I believe that you have a great opportunity to play here. We have a running back by the name of Tony Nathan, who is our starting running back. He's 2 years ahead of you, and we believe you will step in right after him. Well, as crazy as things go, Tony and Nathan and I become very good friends because we ended up coaching together on Tony Dungy's staff. Tony Dungy's first coaching assignment, on his first staff, myself and Tony Nathan was a part of that staff. So we became very good friends as the years go on, as crazy as things are.
Was that Minnesota?
I would have been in a position to be the next starting running back there. But as God would have it, a lot of times at a big school, sometimes you get overshadowed. Yeah. Sometimes they bring it in the best of the best. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten the playing time there that I should to be able to showcase my talents. But by going to a smaller school, I was on the field every snap. So I don't regret not going to the big school. I believe it was God's path for me to go this way. And I ended up where I ultimately wanted to be anyway. And that was in the National Football League. So it all worked out.
Now, can you walk us through your career from the draft process all the way to the end of your career?
Oh boy.
Football.
Well, the football wise, okay. The draft part of it was interesting. Like it says, at a Division II school, in my mind, I'm thinking I want to play in the NFL, but that wasn't something the school was used to. I think they knew they had something a little special when I came in as a true freshman. To be honest with you, when I got there as a true freshman, they had like 6 other running backs there. I think it was either 6 or 7 running backs. And whatever they had, I was number 6 or number 7 in their eyes. I wasn't a local kid. They had a lot of Pennsylvania kids. And I was this kid from, at the time, Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore. When I came there, I was told to them, I wasn't really recruited by them. I was told to them by someone. So I remember right before the season started, we had a scrimmage game against another small school. And I have to be honest with you, this is where I learned how to handle myself, because I was a little upset because the game was going on and I wasn't getting in the game. And you're not used to that. I wasn't used to not playing. And so I remember the coach turned to who the coach now is a very good friend of mine. We ended up becoming very good friends, but at this time I didn't care too much for him because he wouldn't put me in the game. All the running backs got in the game before me. And then I remember him turning to me. I'm sitting on the bench with the look of a young freshman who's upset. And I remember him turning to me, said, "Get your helmet and get in there." And me being a kid from Baltimore, Maryland, and kind of streetwise, I had that look like, yeah, okay. So I kind of rolled up there and I stood there and I waited till it was time for me to get in the game. And as God would have it, they called my number the very first play. I remember it was a off tackle play, and I went 65 yards for a touchdown. Came back the next play, he put me back in there again, and it was a sweep, and I went like 45 yards for a touchdown. So the great thing about it was he never really said much to me, but I guess we had a little school newspaper, and it came out that Monday morning that the head coach had named his starting running back for the beginning of the season, and it was me. So I went from the 6th or 7th running back to the starting running back opening day. And I sat down. I felt bad for him, but I sat down a guy who was a senior and going into a senior year, so he didn't start his senior year.
Collateral damage.
Well, and I mean, and that happens in sports. Just like when you were talking about going to Alabama, the plan was that you would come in after this guy left. So that means you're coming in as a freshman. He was going to be a junior and had 2 years. Who's to say that after his junior year, right? They bring in another another running back, and now you get bumped back. So the thing is that definitely happens in sports, and so you just kind of have to be prepared, and just like you said, you actually took that opportunity and literally ran with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so that's one of the things that I think that that translates well to life, right? Because sometimes we don't get the opportunities that we, or when we go into an opportunity, we don't even realize it's an opportunity because we're in our feelings about the fact that you thought it was supposed to be this way and it wasn't. Well, the thing is that you hear a lot of people say now, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And what you did is you were ready so that when your number was called, you were able to show them, hey, I should have been here the whole time, but you did it with your play. You didn't have to do it with your mouth.
Oh, he was pissed.
And so,
he was mad.
I get it. But the thing is there's one thing with so you got to realize now we have so many athletes that would be doing it vocally.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time, if you're a great player, you let other people talk about how great you are. You don't have to tell nobody. If you're doing all the talking about how good you are, you're probably not that good, or not as good as you think.
That's easy to say, from someone in their 40s, but a 22-year-old, especially going through what you're going through on the sideline, you guys are probably getting beat. The running back is probably only getting 2 yards to carry. That's frustrating. It's terrible.
That's exactly why we have this show.
Yes, sir.
It's so that so they can get it from the people who've been there.
Yeah, where to go.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they know, listen, I remember hearing this on ASAP Elite.
Yeah.
This situation, I just need to make sure that I'm ready for my opportunity. See, that's the thing about it is we get it. It's harder to do it at 22 than it is when you're than to look at 42. But the thing is that that's the reason why we have these, special guests on here who can share what their experiences was, so that, they don't have to make the mistakes you guys made. They can learn from the successes and the mistakes that were made during your guys' career. So yeah, I agree with you, Coach Ben. It is definitely hard for them. That's the reason why we're trying to give them this roadmap.
Especially when you got the juice, like Mr. Porter.
Man. And there's a lot of y'all that got the juice.
It teaches you to be humble. And like I said, it was hard. It was sitting there. And like I said, I was a angry kid from Baltimore, Maryland. sitting there knowing I can play. And they always had this attitude. And I remember when I first came up there, it says, "You sure you can play football up here in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, where the steel mills and all that
Hmm.
are, these kids, these are tough kids. They're steel mill kids, they come
Blue collar
and
worker.
yeah, blue collar workers." And I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to hear that. I'm from some a place that we don't take a backseat to anybody. So, uh, like you said, Rob, it was it was a little that I was able to keep my anger inside. Now you can probably see it on my face a little bit, but I didn't verbalize.
Oh yeah.
I strapped my helmet on and went in there, and I just believed that God was with me because it could have turned out a lot of different ways. It could have been you're sitting over there pouting, and you go in there and you fumbled the ball or you didn't do something. So it worked out the way it was supposed to, and got the opportunity and ended up getting a starting job and being able to make a little name for myself at Slippery Rock.
Good stuff.
Okay, so all right, so you get drafted by Detroit.
Yeah, that was interesting in itself too. Now, again, it seems like right when I'm ready to go to the next level, something happens. I told you in high school, I got hurt my senior year, and the offers didn't come like they were supposed to, or like I thought they should. And then right before the draft, I did something that I'm advised kids not to do now. I'm not even a basketball player, but I'm out there playing around on the basketball court, uh, really just for exercise or whatever like that. The guy undercuts me. I come down on my knee and tore a little piece of cartilage in my knee. So they had to go in there and scope it and pull that out. Well, the crazy thing is that I get hurt then. So now, the far as I wasn't going to be a real high draft choice anyway because of smaller school and people are still skeptical about that. But then what happened is I all of a sudden I started scouts started coming around, things started happening, opportunities, and when the draft came up, I remember this. My heart was set on playing professional football, and I remember back then we didn't have everything we had right now. You didn't maybe didn't have a TV in your room, or they didn't have the ESPN and the whole draft on there.
Yeah,
So
televised and everything.
exactly. So I'm sitting in my dorm. I was sitting somewhere watching it for a minute, but I knew I wasn't gonna get drafted early. So I remember, this is God's having truth. I remember going back to my dorm room and almost crying myself to sleep because I just felt like my dream was not gonna happen. And I remember falling asleep on my bed in my dorm room, and someone come banging on my door and said, "Ricky, you need to get down to the football office as soon as possible." And I'm like, I'm kind of in a daze. I get up and I run all the way to the football office. And when I get to the football office, my head coach says, "Hey, I got somebody on the phone you need to talk to." And at that time, it was the general manager for the Detroit Lions. And he had just told me that I had just been drafted by them. Um, and just, asked the basic questions they asked. And naturally I was excited. And that's how it happened.
Absolutely.
But I didn't see it on the draft or anything like that. I was actually asleep when my name was called. But I cried myself to sleep because I thought that dream was over. I'm being honest with you. I thought that dream was over. So it worked out. It worked out.
Okay, so you get drafted by Detroit and you go on a campus. Billy Sims there already?
Yeah, Billy's there. Matter of fact, they put my locker right next to his. I don't think Billy ever called me by my name. He always called me Slippery,
Slippery. Yeah.
for Slippery Rock. And but he was right to the right of me, and his locker. I don't know why they did it like that, but it was a crazy situation. Like I says, I got a million stories because when I got there, I'm sure that I didn't. I definitely didn't get the respect of the players that went to the bigger schools. Um, I remember one night in our dorm rooms in training camp, they had drafted me. I think they brought a guy from Nebraska and a guy in from Illinois or somewhere. And you know how you're sitting around the dorm talking and joking and playing and all that. and Larry was there. Larry Lee was there, and we sitting around talking and joking, and one of the guys made a comment, says, "Slippery Rock." He said, "What do they play, 8-man football there?"
Oh wow.
So that was the big joke. It was like, 8-man football. They don't play real football there, and all this. And my comment to him at that time, trying to be humble but getting my piece out, I says, "Well, you know what? When you get that knock on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the coach tell you to come see him and bring your playbook," I said, "Don't worry, I'll help you carry your trunk down the hallway." And I said that to him, and I remember it. And we, after that, both of them were released, and I made the team. And
Hmm.
like I said, Billy Sims was my locker mate right next to me.
That's good stuff.
So,
Now, did you help him? I know. I'm sorry. I got fired. Did you help him carry this stuff out?
No, hey, I had to get my sleep. I heard him dragging it down the hallway. I said, "I'm gonna just stay in bed. I gotta get my rest for practice."
yeah, definitely.
See, you're a little different than me. I'm not gonna go. You were a better person because if I'd have heard him dragging it down the hallway, I'd be like, oh no, don't drag it. I don't want you to mess anything up. Here, let me be at the other end.
Don't mess up the college.
uh, yeah, I remember that clearly. They 8-man football. That's not a real school, is it? I said, well, whatever you think. But and that only fueled my fire
That's
to
right.
go out there, kind of like I did my freshman year in college, to go out there and prove myself, and prove that I could play in the National Football League, and it just worked out for me. I got a chance to play in Detroit. I went to Detroit, then I went to Baltimore. I got a chance to play with the Baltimore Colts, which was at that time my hometown where I grew up.
Mhm.
And after Baltimore, got a chance to. The interesting thing now, I don't know if y'all know about this. I'd gone over into they had the USFL. I was with the Memphis
Mhm.
Showboats. Had gone over with the Memphis Showboats, and then that league folded,
Yep.
and then I was kind of out. I'm like, what am I going to do now? So I ended up going to Canada
Okay.
and made the. Wow, I never put this story together like this, but now that I think about it, I went to Canada and again had got hurt up there. And it's not like I'm an injury prone person, but this was a torn ligament in my knee. Well, the good thing about it, at this late in my career, that's an injury that pretty much your career is over.
Pretty much.
But because I did it in Canada, they were doing this new technique up there. It was called a Gore-Tex ligament.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the guy who did my surgery was the Montreal Canadiens hockey doctor.
Mm.
And he came to my room and told me, I said, well, that's pretty much it for me, right, Doc? He said, no. He says, we got this new technique that hasn't been approved in the States, but it's approved here in Canada. And
Hmm.
what it looked like, it's about 6 inches long, 6 to 8 inches long, and it looks like a braid of hair with two plastic clips on the end.
Mm.
And he showed me where he would cut the side of my leg, lift my thigh muscle up because he didn't want to damage that. And he worked under my thigh and he weaved it under my knee and screwed it in two places. And when I woke up the next morning, he said, right now, your knee is as good as it's ever going to be. All you got to do is build the muscle up around it. So
Wow.
when you tear your ACL, you usually have to baby it because it has to adhere. You have to make sure that it doesn't, that it accepts this foreign object in your body and all that. Where at this time, you didn't have to do that. All I had to do was build a muscle up around it. So I got a chance to, he did that. And he says he had like 4 hockey skaters that had him in their knee. And I figured if you could cut and do things on ice.
On ice, absolutely.
So it saved my career. So I ended up coming back. That and another thing, normally it takes you almost a year to come back totally. I was back in about 5 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 4 to 5 months. And I remember the first day of training camp with the Montreal Alouettes. Um, he had a brace on my knee. He came to practice that day and he said, I want you to wear this brace. Well, I remember wearing the brace and I said, Doc, you know what? I've rehabbed this thing. I don't think I need this brace. I want to see if I can go without it. He said, "You sure you want to do that?" I said, "Yeah." So for the afternoon practice, I took the brace off. I remember going through the hole, cutting and spinning out and taking off. And when I did that, the doctor started smiling and says, "Oh, he's fine."
Oh,
And I never wore a brace or anything. But the crazy thing about that, again, I win the starting job. I'm ready to go in the season.
yeah. Mm.
Some of the fellas and all are sitting at a restaurant, kind of like a bar restaurant. And all of a sudden we see scroll across the television that the Montreal Alouettes had just folded.
Oh, wow.
So I said, here we go again. The USFL folded when I got the starting job there. Then
Donald Trump.
now in the NFL,
Yeah.
I mean in the CFL, the Montreal Alouettes fold. So
Mm-hmm.
now I go back to my apartment and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? Um, and remember, Marv Levy, the head coach of the Buffalo
Yes.
Bills,
Yep, yep.
he was up in Canada at the time. And I remember him calling me up and saying, "Ricky, I just got the head job with the Buffalo Bills. How would you like to come home and come back to the States?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Okay." And that's how that happened. So God just kind of walked me through this thing, and he brought me to the Buffalo Bills. And that's where I um, finished my career with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, yeah, man. That's pretty interesting. You had so much trepidation and adversity to overcome and triumph, but you never gave up with dealing with the physical and the mental aspect of it. When someone tears a knee, no matter if it's 100% rehab physically, it's always somewhere in the back of your mind. That
Mhm.
mentally, should I make this cut? Can I make this cut? And it eventually
Right.
affects your game. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing: is you did it, and I was just actually talking to my son. Your injury, if you think back in that time, that was a career ender.
Yeah, same thing happened to Billy Sims.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that was a career ender back then. I mean, and so nowadays, you have people like Adrian Peterson who had two of them and is still playing. I mean,
Back and ran for 2,000 yards the next season.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, the thing is, so you were able to God put you in the place so that you would continue to extend your career. And this is before, you could tear a ligament in your knee and your career be extended.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So, yeah, definitely. There was a plan for you, man. There's a plan for
yeah. So, uh,
I'm
following
sorry.
your career as a player. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You
Following
good.
your career as a player, you entered the coaching realm. What challenges did you have to overcome when it comes to seeing and understanding the game from a sideline perspective?
I think Rob, I think I had a little bit a jump on that. I remember when I got into coaching. The reason I got into coaching was the same guy who saved my career and brought me back to Buffalo was Marv Levy.
Uh-huh.
Marv Levy, when my last year there, I remember him calling me in and saying, "Hey Ricky, have you ever considered coaching?" And I said, "No, not really." He says, "Look, you're one of the few players that I've ever coached that knew what everybody on the field was doing." He said, "You knew, what the wide receivers were doing. You knew where your line blocks were coming from. You knew what the fullback's job was. You knew what you were like a quarterback." I was playing with Jim Kelly at the time. He said, "You're just like another Jim Kelly out there because you know what everybody's doing." He said, "And that's what it takes to be a good coach." So that's when he offered me the opportunity to come back that next summer and do the minority coaching internship. And so he gave me my first opportunity to come up there and see how it all works. So I did a couple of those minority coaching internships. And I think the fact that I guess I had that little thing of knowing what everybody did on the field, coaching came easy to me.
Mhm.
And it's funny you say that now. I went on, I left there, I ended up going back to Slippery Rock and getting my first official coaching job. My coach that we weren't very good friends at the time, my running back coach, who now had become the head coach, wanted me to come back and be the running back coach there. So I ended up going back to Slippery Rock and being a running back coach. Was there for 2 years, and got a call from Kent State University
Okay.
in Kent, Ohio, to move. Didn't want to move, but coach suggested, hey, if you want to do this football thing, this coaching thing, you're going to have to move. And so he encouraged me to take that step up to Division I and go coach at Kent State. Coached at Kent State for a couple of years, and then got a chance to get with national scouting to learn that part of it. That's where the management side or that started coming to scouting. So I was scouting with national scouting. Now, the interesting thing about that is I only scouted there for 6 months. We were at Indianapolis at the combine. And that's when I got a chance, my first opportunity to meet Tony Dungy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the interesting, he's one of the most amazing humans I've ever been around.
Yeah, that's
He
actually my
is,
cousin, man.
oh, he is my mentor. I mean, I truly, and I know you're not supposed to praise people this way or put people on a pedestal, but he's one guy, if you wanted to, you could put him up there. Uh, I can't say a bad word, anything bad about him. And I got to tell you this story of how I ended up getting that job. I'm I'm working at the combine in Indianapolis,
Okay.
doing my scouting thing. Um, Tony Dungy had, I guess it was a good friend of mine, Doug Williams, Hall of Fame. I mean, Super Bowl quarterback and all that.
Absolutely.
Doug
Prior
Williams,
Grambling State.
yeah, Grambling State. He had called. Tony Dungy. He had asked him, would he want to come to Tampa and coach with him? And Doug at that time was moving and shaking and doing some things. He said, Tony, I appreciate the opportunity. He said, but I do want to recommend someone for you. And he said, who is? He said, Ricky Porter. He said, who is that? And he explained to her who I was and all this. So when Tony Dungy saw me at the combine, he walked up to me and, you kind of shocked. You're like, whoa, that's Tony Dungy. And he reaches out to shake my hand and he calls me by my first name.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how you doing, coach? I said, it's a pleasure to meet you like that. He says, well, he said, Ricky, I've been walking through this dome up here for the last couple of days, and everybody I speak with keeps telling me, you need to talk to Ricky Porter. You need to talk to Ricky Porter. So he kind of smiled and said, I guess I need to talk to you. He said, you got a minute? I said, sure. So we go into a room and we just sitting there. Now, this is the amazing thing about it. We sat down and talked for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. He never talked to me about anything about football. I'm just thinking the guy wanted to get to know me.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking that he's interviewing. And so at the end of this 30-minute conversation about life and, my faith and everything we talked about, he says to me, he said, Ricky, how would you like to come to Tampa Bay and be a part of my coaching staff? And you could have knocked me over right then. I mean, that came from left field. I'm not thinking he's interviewing me. I'm not thinking it. I'm just thinking it's a guy that wants to get to know me. Mm-hmm. And he offered me the job. And right after, this is one of the amazing things about him. He said to me, he said, look, this is what I need you to do. At that time, we didn't have cell phones. I think it was pay phones. He said, I need you to go call your wife and ask her permission for me to hire you on my coaching staff. And I thought that was the most amazing thing. I never heard anything like that before. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't have to ask anybody anything. Yeah, I'm covered. I said, I don't need to ask anybody anything. And he said to me, he says, I need you to do that. Now, here's another amazing part about the story. I call my wife and I'm just having a little chit chat with her. And I said to her, she says to me, she says, isn't it something you need to ask me? And I look at her and I'm like, huh? She says, isn't it something you need to ask me?
Yeah.
I said, No, not really. She said, yes, it is. And so then I said to her, she says to me, I come to find out that Tony, before I could call my wife, she said, Ricky, that's why she loves him to death.
Yeah.
She says, she says that Tony called her up and then introduced himself to her and said, hey, I'm Tony Dungy. I'm the new head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I wanted to know, how do you feel about me offering your husband a job to be the my coach here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Wow.
And I just thought that it was the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I got the job. I had to ask my wife for permission, but before I asked her, Tony had already asked her permission to offer me the job.
That
And
make you look at things in a totally different perspective.
that's
Well, it's an testament to the man that he is.
Yes.
he's not your average guy by no means. I know no other coach I've ever been with, and I've been around some great coaches. No one has ever treated me the way he does and does things the way that he does them. He is truly a man of faith, and he believes in that. And when he was interviewing me, because I asked him later on, I said, Coach, we never talked football. He said, Ricky, I know you know football. He
Yeah.
said, and all you have to do is learn our system. I want to know what's in your heart and what kind of man you are.
That's right.
He said, because that's the kind of staff I'm putting together. So he said, football is secondary. He said, life is more important. And I was like, wow. So we went through that, and he just, the things that he would say and do. I got to give you this other story. He was a guy that was in his office early every morning, and he would sit there. And I remember one morning, it was called his quiet time. He'd have his Bible out. So one day I was walking past and I needed to ask him something. I went on there and I just tapped on the door and stuck my head in. And I said, oh, Coach, I'm sorry. I said, I didn't know you were studying. He said, no, 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 no. Come on in, Rick. Come on in like that. And this is one thing that I still do to this day. And I'm not going to name the coach that doesn't do this because I don't want to do that. But I know it's some coaches that sit behind a big desk and they just feel like they're God and you're beneath them. Tony has a big desk, big chair and all that, but he has a sofa in front of his desk. He said, come on in, Rick, have a seat. He gets up from his big desk, sits over on the sofa next to me, and he positioned his body in a way that was welcoming to say, okay, what's on your mind?
Wow.
And I felt like, wow, you talking about this man is unbelievable. He did not want to come across as I'm bigger than you, I'm the boss. Sit down here with me. And he, like it says, I can't figure my body the way to show you how it was a welcoming kind of like a dad, like,
Yeah.
okay, tell me what's on your mind. And to this day, every place I've ever coached or done anything, only time I would sit behind my desk if a kid came in real quick and asked a quick question and just wanted a quick answer and ran out. But if they came in here to have a conversation with me, I got up from my desk and we sat on a sofa or either two chairs side by side to where we could talk. And I've learned so much from him.
So you adopted a lot of the philosophies and character traits of those positive men and coaching roles that you had during your career.
Exactly. I was told a long time ago from who probably is right there with Tony Dungy as far as an intelligent man, um, is Coach Marv Levy.
Okay.
One of the things he told me, he said, Ricky, I'm gonna give you one bit of advice now that you're going into this coaching thing and the minority coaching internship. He says, I want you to promise me that everywhere you go, I don't care if the worst coach you've ever been with or the best coach you've ever been with, if you leave that job and make the statement, I didn't learn anything, that's your fault.
That's right.
He said, if it's a great coach, you learn what to do. If he's a coach that you think is the worst coach you learn what not to do. He
That's
says,
right.
That's
if
right.
you leave there not learning, that's your fault. And I've taken that everywhere. I've been with some coaches that I said, I will never, ever do that. or I'll never talk to someone that way or do this. And I've been with coaches like a Tony Dungy, a Marv Levy, that I said, I want to emulate that person. So
This is
I've
You
had some
know,
big,
so it's filled with
yeah.
already just filled with so much wisdom, man. I'm just grateful. I can just listen to you all day.
Well, yeah, and you said so much in there, and but one of the things that I pulled from that is that I tell people all the time when I'm working with youth or when I'm just talking to friends is that no matter what you do, your reputation is going to precede you. And one of the things that was clear in all the stories that you talked about, right, from uh, when you were in Canada with Mark Levy, and then also in your conversation with Tony Dungy and Doug Williams speaking so highly of you. The thing is that your reputation of being a good person, someone not only that understands the game of football. What was it? The first time you were asked to be a coach was because you knew what everybody else was doing,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
so there those people look thinking about you in that particular with in that particular way. That says a lot about who you are. And so what I'd like for you to share with our audience is just so what were some of the things that really that you would attribute to being spoken of in that manner? Like what were some of the things that you whether it was things morally, whether it was a practice that you actually had that they can learn from, so they can say, okay, I want to be spoken of in this particular manner. So these are the things that I need to do.
I would have to say it was the way I was raised. And a lot of that comes from my mother, just respecting people. And people don't give you respect, you have to earn it. And I believe that I learned a lot from her when it comes to that. It's it's just a funny thing is how when you treat people a certain way, it tends to come back to you. I feel a lot of times that I've even questioned myself at times. I says, maybe would my career have been gone a little further or something if I had been a little more outspoken or a little bit. I was always this humble person. Um, I think Robert said somebody, I'd rather people talk about me than me talk about myself. And I think a lot of times I think sometimes if I'd have been a little more boisterous, would that have helped me out a little bit? I used to tell people all the time, I says, I'm not a cocky or conceited person, but I straddle the line because I'm very confident. I'm very confident in my ability, but I'm not cocky or conceited. But I know I straddle that line there. But I do everything in my power to not be that overbearing kind of person. And I think when you do that, and I think another thing is when you get the respect is from your players is when players know and they can read you and they know when you know what you're talking about. I said, I remember telling a young man this one time, he made a comment. He said, well, coach, sometimes it seems like you treat me differently than you do some of the other players. I said, you're absolutely right. I said, I do. I said, because I think that's the sign of a good coach is when you know what you need to do to get the most out of your players. I
That's
said,
right.
some players, I know that if I get on them hard and give them a swift kick in the butt, and they're gonna be like, Coach, I got it now. I'm ready to go because been around the kid long enough to know what it takes to get him fired up. This other kid, I know how he is. He's a heck of a player too, but you got to put your arm on his shoulder and walk with him and talk to him because he needs that. That's the kind of thing that he needs. And as a good coach, you got to know what fires up each one of your players. And once you get that, and I just believe when you can talk to a kid like that and make them understand, like I said, the respect thing. Um, you don't have to like me. I really don't care if you like me, but you're going to respect me, and I'm going to earn your respect. And I believe, because I was this type of player, I didn't like to be yelled and screamed at. I felt like if I respect you and I know you got my best interest, I tell you, shoot, I could have a broken leg and I might say, Coach, just tape it up. I can go because I want to play well for him.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a coach you don't respect or you don't care much for, you could have a little hangnail on your finger and just say, hey, I can't go back there. I really don't care if you get fired. I don't care about you, that kind of thing. So I think the thing is, if your players respect you and care about you and know that you can help them get to the next level or to get a bigger contract or do it, the little things you teach them, I believe that's why I have so many relationships right now that guys I've coached years ago that will call me up and say, man, I can't believe your number's still the same. So my number's not going to change. I want you to always, if you don't change, your number, I will always be able to get in touch with you, but you will always be able to get in touch with me.
Right.
And I think that's the relationship you want to have. I found out so many times, I got another story for you. I had the opportunity of coaching Reggie Bush with the New Orleans Saints.
My guy right there, man.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is to find out that Reggie had trouble fumbling the ball a lot when he first got there. And the coach he had at the time, I wasn't coaching, I was in the front office at the time. And I remember him coming to my office and sitting down, and he said, Ricky P, man, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong, man? These coaches just yelling at me, and all they would say to him, the coach at the time would just say to him, and I like I said, I'm not here to bash coaches or anything. I don't want that to come off this way. But he just said all he would say to him was, stop fumbling the damn football. Stop fumbling the damn football. That's all he would say to him. I said, well, Reggie, has he ever showed you how to stop fumbling the football? He said, no. So I said, go down to the locker room, get a football, and come back to my office. Now, something I showed him that I wish he was here to tell the story because he tells it better than I do. He says, I said, Reggie, have you ever heard of 5 points of pressure? Yep. Now, this is a kid that played at USC.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Heisman Trophy winner, one of the best programs around. And it just shows you that some people can coach and some people can't. Yep. And I showed him, I made him hold a football, and I showed him the 5 points of pressure. I said, every time I come up to you, I said, what's the 5 points of pressure? I want you to say fingertips, palm, forearm, bicep, and rib cage. Those 5 points of pressure, high and tight. And I said, you've never heard that, Reggie? He said, no, I never heard 5 points of pressure. I said, and then I showed him examples. If one of these 5 points of pressure is relaxed, your elbow comes out a little bit, or your fingers come off it or whatever, or your forearm comes away from your rib cage. I said, the ball's going to come out. I said, as long as you keep these 5 points of pressure, you'll stop fumbling the ball. Well, you noticed that through his career, he wasn't considered a fumbler anymore. Mm-hmm. And that was something that even when I was in management, I was able to help. I'm always looking to give back to young men in this sport. So
see, and it's stuff like that. See, you're not going to get the 5 points of pressure on any other podcast that you watch except for ASAP Elite. So I hope my running backs, and honestly because at some point, whether you're on defense or offense, you may find yourself carrying the ball. But if you have those 5 points of pressure, you don't have to worry about fumbling that ball. So, man, thank you for that. And I will tell you, Reggie Bush was one of my favorite players all time. Most people who know me know, you don't have to tell me much. I was a big USC fan growing up in Southern California. Sammy played with USC, and his brothers played with USC. One of my best friends, who was one of our guests on the show, Chris Claiborne, played with SC. And I will say, of course, I always have I'm biased towards my, towards my family, but outside of that, man, it was Reggie Bush, man. My wife will tell you to this day, I got tired of hearing Reggie Bush this, Reggie Bush that. So yeah.
Well,
Hassan, thank you for that story.
I can understand it. He is a great guy. I'm gonna tell you something. When I first got there, We had
Ricky
um,
Williams
Ricky
or Deuce
Williams.
McAllister.
We had Ricky Williams. And then I had Deuce.
Mhm.
Now, this is the amazing thing is I wasn't the running back coach at the time. I was the director of player development at the time. But there's no substitute, and these young men understood that for having played the game. It's some things that now I'm not taking against. There's some great coaches out there that's never played the game. But when you've played that game, you talk from a different point of view.
Yep.
Because as a running back, they could talk to me and I know exactly what they're talking about or what they saw. So we got to a point that I would be standing on the sideline, and after Deuce McAllister would go in there and do his thing, get some water, come back, and it was like clockwork. I could be standing on the sideline and he would come up and kneel down beside me and just say, Ricky P, what you see out there? And we would talk. And after he come out every season, he would kneel down next to me. And I wasn't trying to overshadow the running back coach at the time, but I'm not going to tell him to stay away. I'm going to give him the
Right.
advice that I feel he's
You're there to help.
I'm not going to overstep my boundary because, he did have a running back coach. So he would do that. This is the funny thing, Hassan, that about halfway through the season, when Reggie came there, after they come out, because we started running them at the same time, Deuce would be kneeling on my left side, Reggie would be kneeling on my right side. And Reggie learned real quick. He'd come over there, Ricky P, what you see out there? And that's how we did it. We talked to, you talking about having an opportunity to coach some not just great athletes, but great people. Reggie and Deuce, they're way up there, along with my man Terrell Davis out at Denver. So
Okay. Hall of Fame running back Terrell Davis.
There you go. Uh, it's been some special guys that I've had the opportunity to be around, some special players.
On a more serious note, you covered a lot of things that I cover, routinely when it comes down to coaching. I just retired 2 weeks ago. The feeling to be able to get a group of guys to buy in to something that's bigger than themselves and achieve something that they weren't expected to achieve and exceed expectations, the feeling is nothing like it.
So,
Yep. Those same players that I was able to accomplish that with still call me daily. And it's the same thing. Yes, sir. And when you spoke about coaches not playing the game, that's a big deal. I was just having this conversation the other day. You cannot take a high school student and then expect him the next year to go teach college level trigonometry. It just doesn't work. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a certain level of experience, and once you climb that ladder, even the language changes.
Mm-hmm.
This game is so pure, man. It's nothing like it once you receive what it was built for.
Right.
All right. Let's go ahead. I can go into this forever because I could just talk ball with you all day. But let's proceed. 97, 98, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. We're not gonna get really in the guts of that right now, but I wanted to take a different avenue. So that Super Bowl winning team, what were some of the characteristics of that back-to-back winning Denver Bronco team that you were able to implement in your future endeavors as coaching, and how was it once they bought into that philosophy, your teams?
Rob, I'm hoping I'm going to answer your question here, but the one thing that I would have to say, the reason behind that winning attitude was perfection. I've never been around a group of guys, and I have to say this, and I hope I'm not offending some of the other teams that I've been around, but I've never seen a team that everybody were perfectionists. I don't know if that stemmed from Mike Shanahan, our head coach at the time, but Denver did things different. I mean, from everything we did. I mean, it was like you talking about dotting your I's twice and crossing your T's twice. We did it. I got to, and one of my cousins, Andrew, always says to me, Ricky, you got a million stories, but I love hearing them. I got to tell you this one. I'm in practice one day, and we could go through a whole practice and not one ball hit the ground. I'm talking about teams, 7-on-7, whatever we do, one-on-ones, everything is caught. Everybody were perfections. And I remember one day, Rod Smith, our wide receiver, ran down and ran a dig route, 15-yard dig coming across the middle. And he caught the ball, went on down the field, and everything we did, we took it to the house. Terrell Davis, everybody, you take it to the house, because that was our conditioning too. That wasn't from something from Mike Shanahan. That was the team decided to do that. Every ball you caught, I don't care if you're 10 yards from the end zone or 80 yards from the end zone, we conditioning, we run it. Anything less than Super Bowls we couldn't do. I mean, we just, the way we. So this is what's the amazing thing right here, Rob. He runs a 15-yard dig route. He comes back to the huddle. John Elway goes over to him. I'm standing right there, and this is when I said, this team is special. John Elway said, hey, Rod, that's my bad, my bad. I'm like, what does he talk about? That's my bad. I mean, it was perfect pass that I thought. He says, John Elway said this, and I'll never forget it. He said, Rod, you know, that ball was right here.
Yep.
He said, I promise you, next time we run that route, I'm going to put it right here. Yep. I mean, I'm talking about a matter of an inch or two. He said, I put it right here, but I'm going to put it right here the next time.
That's a big deal for a receiver.
But I'm just saying, nobody pays attention to that. He catches
nobody. Absolutely.
But John Elway said, Rod, he apologized. Hey man, it was good, but it was right here. Yeah. But next time it's gonna be right here. Wow. And I mean, he talked about moving over maybe an inch and a half.
That's right.
And the next time he threw it, that's what
right there.
Wow.
That's right.
And you know, Rod used to tell me stories. I was close with all the players again. Rod used to tell me we could be down by, 6 points with 2.5 minutes to go in the game. He said John would come in there smile and laugh. He said, I can't say exactly what he said, but I'm just gonna say, he said, we got these right where we want them. And he doom, touchdown, and we win the game. John just believed that no game was out of reach.
Absolutely. And he played his whole career that way.
The drive.
The drive. They were perfectionists, man. But this is the thing. Not just John Elway, everybody, Shannon Sharp. We had a who's who's. Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, on defense. I mean, we had a defense at Water. We had everybody.
Well, Ray Crockett was on that team too, I think.
Ray Crockett,
I believe Lynch played on that team too, didn't he?
No, Lynch was on that team.
Yeah, he was.
Everybody. We had a who's who. Remember, we had drafted John Mobley, was our, one of our linebackers. We just had a who's who on that team. I mean, it was a great team we had.
You guys were definitely and honestly, with Terrell Davis, that was because if you look at the other Super Bowls that Denver was in, John Elway was on point. I mean, they usually started fast, but what they didn't have, because back when they played the Redskins and the Giants, you had your Bobby Humphreys and stuff like. But when you guys got Terrell Davis, that was it. That was it, because now you were just as dangerous on the ground as you were in the air.
It was
because
you could,
It was
like 4 running backs on that team.
Oh, we had quite a bit.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is when I think back to those 2 Super Bowls, those back-to-back Super Bowls, I think of now you got to worry about the running back and the quarterback. Yeah. Because everybody knew that John Elway was coming to play. right?
Balance.
Well,
But
I,
when Terrell Davis was really pounding it, I mean, it was just, it took the team and you had to plan differently.
Yeah.
And so that was the difference maker.
Go ahead,
well,
Mr.
I'd have to give the credit to, I don't know if you're, Bobby Turner was the running back coach with the Denver Broncos.
Mhm.
He was another guy that I looked up to as one of the best running back coaches I learned so much from him. And Bobby Turner was the one that did the scouting, did everything. And he's the one that went to Mike Shanahan and said, we need to get this guy. He was a 6th-round draft choice from Georgia. And Terrell never put up the real big numbers, but Bobby Turner saw something in him that said, this kid is special. And we when we drafted Terrell, it changed that whole program around. A lot of people don't know that in that Super Bowl, the winning touchdown, I think it was the winning touchdown when John Elway jumps over
The helicopter.
Mhm.
Terrell Davis suffers from migraine headaches real bad.
In the back. Yeah, yeah.
And he got one towards the end of the game to where he couldn't even see. He said, Rick, he said, my vision was gone. And they told Shanahan that, hey, I remember John telling Shanahan that he can't see. His head is pounded right now. He can literally not see. So John, he told John, but if we take Terrell out the game, they're not going to buy this play. So Terrell said, don't
Mhm.
worry about it. I know what he is. So all he did is in his mind took his basic steps where he's supposed to go. They faked it to Terrell and everybody bid on it. And John went around and dove over the end. And that's how we scored a touchdown. But it was because Terrell Davis in there. But this guy, he said his vision was so bad from his migraine, he couldn't even see.
That was one of the
So
best Super Bowls I ever watched, by the way.
what?
One of the best Super Bowls I ever watched.
Oh, no doubt. I think it was too.
This question is brought to you by Elliot Johnson and Power Elite Sports because we have the best kids. How do you feel about the minority hiring process or lack thereof in the NFL? Not just the NFL, but in sports overall.
I'm not happy with it. I mean, to be honest with you, this year is a prime example of how many jobs were open and how many were filled by minorities. Um, I Rob, I don't know what how we can change it with the temperature of the United States right now in the world and everything that's going on. We seem like we're primed for something good to start happening because I think people are sick and tired of a lot of things that's going on in the world and all that's playing a part. I mean, we're starting to see little things where we're seeing female officials, which is great.
Yeah.
Basketball officials, basketball coaches. We're starting to see that. But it's just so far and few between and so slow coming. Uh, I don't know if we will ever get there. And the only thing I can say is we just got to keep fighting. It's a tough battle, and to this year to come out of it, I believe Mr. Rooney was a great man, and I think his intentions were right with the Rooney Rule. But the Rooney Rule is like a lot of other things now; it's being circumvented. You learn one rule, and then midstream they change the rules on you, and
Loophole.
that's what they're doing right now. I remember when I was coming through, you couldn't you had to go through the steps. You had to be a position coach, then a coordinator,
Yeah.
and then possibly get a chance at a head coach. But then all of a sudden, you got guys jumping from a position coach to a head coach.
Yeah.
And all I've ever said is give us the rules,
Mm.
tell us what the rules are, and don't change them. Or if you're going to change them, let us know. Don't do it midstream.
That's right.
The rules are set to help them and help them get what they want, and they change the rules when they want. And that's the crazy thing about it. We're trying to abide by the rules, but it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I get it. Definitely.
Well, and one of the things that we need to do in this particular atmosphere, and this situation is what you personified your entire career, right? Is one, we have to stay diligent, continue to work hard, and make sure that we're ready when our opportunity comes. And so you showed that, right? Because um, we also need to look at people that look like us desiring to be in the front offices
Yep. And think,
and then being and then excelling when they're in that position, understanding that they're not doing it just for themselves,
mm,
right? And so one of the things before we jump off, I know that our time is really short, but um, how so an athlete, whether it's a professional athlete or someone who desires to maybe one day work in a front office on a team, how would you uh, what advice would you give them that would help them to prepare themselves to be able to work in a front office of some professional sport team?
I think you need to understand the game that you want, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or whatever. Understand the game, and I think you just have to be diligent in pursuing, um, not being afraid to put yourself out there and go talk to people.
That's right.
If you hear about, that's what I did when, about the combines and the senior bowls and places like that. It might, you might have to make a trip to go down. And one thing that I found out is don't be afraid to go up and introduce yourself to people, because
Mhm.
the only way in this possession in this profession, because it's not that many jobs out there, you have to be in a position where you're ready to step in there and go meet people and shake hands and introduce yourself to people. I met a lot of great coaches there. I have this beautiful picture there in my house of me and Coach Eddie Robinson, who's deceased now, from Grambling State. He was there.
Absolutely.
And we don't have time, but I could tell you some stories about him, another great guy. But you got to go up and introduce these yourself to these people, meet people, stand outside when they're walking over, at the combine or something, they're going in. You know their faces, introduce yourself to them, meet the assistant coaches, have resumes in hand. They might not look at it that year, but it might be stuffed in their drawer one day and they may pull it out.
mm,
You know, um, I remember a story about when I was coaching at Slippery Rock. We went down to University of Florida, no, Florida State, to study under them, for 4 or 5 days. So we went down there. They taught us all they knew, and it was like a clinic. And I remember seeing Bobby Bowden there, the head coach of Florida State for years. And I remember an older coach telling me, whenever you meet one of these coaches, you got to do something or say something to make them remember you.
mm,
And so me and Coach Bowden were talking, and he was just idle chit chat. And he said, "Well, Ricky, where are you from originally?" I said, "I was born in a little town called Sylacauga, Alabama." And he turned, he said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "Yeah." He said, "My mother was born there." He
mm,
said, "That's a big old white hospital down there." I said, "Yep, that's it." He said, "That's what." So for years after that, whenever Bobby Bowden would see me, he remembered me
mm,
because of that. So always have something in a conversation with someone that you to make that person remember you in a good way. Something, I don't know what it's going to be, but try to do something or be in a situation or say something that guy will always remember you, because this is a small community, and somehow, some way, it goes in circles and it comes back. So
So, as the final question,
That
because I can't end it on that, I want to throw you a curveball. Okay? All right. You said that you started out in baseball, which the majority of our guests all say that they were baseball players first.
I'll say that absolutely. I was going to point that out.
Even our female, uh, even our female guests. What do you think has aided to the decline of African Americans in Major League Baseball?
one is we're not playing it. Every time I have two kids that play college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
One played at Notre Dame. The other one is playing right now at Southern University. He signed with University of Louisiana Lafayette. He's playing at Southern University. And every time, every time someone hears, "Your sons play baseball?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, you must have played baseball." I said, "Yeah, I did like that." One is, in our community, we don't have a lot of us teaching it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you. And that's why a friend of mine, Derek Brown, we're working on some things in Baltimore, Maryland now. He coaches the Cal Ripken League, the
Mm-hmm.
collegiate league. He coaches the Baltimore Dodgers there. And we're always talking about raising money to go back to some of these little small ballparks that we played in and build them back up, get people involved in again, the Black community, and getting these kids out there. In our community, baseball has been seen as boring
Yep.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's slow, and it's been more expensive because you need the gear, you need all this. Basketball, you just need a ball and a hoop.
And people.
Football, you just need a ball. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. You need 9 people.
yeah, exactly. You do.
At least.
And so it's one of those things that uh, it kind of diminished, and a lot of kids will just say, "Well, I want to play basketball. I'll play football or do something like that." And our kids have kind of shied away from. The reason my kids play collegiate baseball is because they found the love for it young and they kept playing it. So I think we got to start back at the little leagues and the programs like that and start building the communities back up. And we need coaches to get out there and coach it. Sometime a dad may not really know baseball,
Yep.
but pick up a book and read it. These kids need to be out there. And I think once we do that, for years, there was a lot of things said about us in baseball. That we weren't smart enough to play baseball, or, the same thing with football. We couldn't play quarterback.
Yep.
In baseball, it was the same type of thing. But some of the greatest players that's ever played the game are African Americans.
That's right.
So
Right.
I just believe that we need to somehow get it back into the youth. And you go in some communities and they got these beautiful little ballparks, little stadiums. And you come into some of our communities and the infield is grown over with grass, and no, they just don't.
Graffiti on the walls and on
Everything.
the dugouts and everything.
So
Absolutely. At least that's how my park
we got to
when I
take care
play.
we got to take care of our own, and we need to step up and just like anything else, and let these people know that we can play this sport too.
Yeah.
We can play baseball too.
That's right.
I was fortunate enough. I ended up going to football, but I was forced to pick a sport. If I can explain that to you, I was forced to pick a sport, and but I did get a chance to play a year minor league baseball in the Orioles farm system because I wanted to see if I could still do it. This was after my football career.
Okay.
So I played up at with the Rochester Red Wings, and so I got a chance to live that dream too, to see if I'd have stuck with baseball, could I have made it? But baseball is. I mean, I've always loved it, but we just kind of drifting away from it now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I wrote an essay my senior year of college, and you covered a lot of the topics that I covered, in that essay. So I do want to thank you, man, for coming on. If I never meant this as much, I mean it now,
Hmm.
big time. I would love to have you back on. I think that we left a lot on the table.
Absolutely. Oh, look, there's a lot that I'm sitting here. I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
man, I wanted to go. But and I always mean it because I think that happens a lot when you have an organic conversation, and people get to talk about, their story, because your story, that's what really helps our audience, right? Whether it's an athlete, whether it's a coach, whether it's a parent, there's so much that you said that's going to really help them. And so, there's stuff that you said that's going to help me, and I'm going to try something. One of the things in researching you, I see that you were born on January 14th, and my birthday is January 15th. And so that's typically, like when I'm looking at stuff like that's one of the things that sticks out immediately to me. I was just like, oh, okay, he's born January 14th. That's good stuff.
That's good. Well, you know what? I agree with you, Hassan and Rob, that we left a lot, on the table, and I would love to come back, and maybe at that time we can maybe go a little slower and really get into details on some things, because I believe that we all have a lot to give our younger generation, and
Absolutely.
to help them along in some of the struggles that we've gone through. And I think sometimes when they hear that, I know my kids being able to have two young men at the house, they've lived my life, and
Mhm.
they know everything. So as my mother would say, they're like old souls. Even my son's college team right now at Southern University, he says sometimes he'll call a team meeting and he'll tell me some of the stuff he said, and it just blows me away. And I can see some of them kids looking at him like, whoa, where did he get that from?
How are you?
Because they have gotten, this has been put into them since they were little boys, on how to conduct themselves like professionals.
So I
That's right.
can't wait to have you back on, man. Once again, thank you, man. I'll be reaching out to you shortly.
Sounds good.
Sure. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you
Well,
for being a
well,
part of
Mr. Porter, you have a wonderful and blessed day, and it was an honor. I enjoyed myself.
Surely was.
Thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Provided me with so much information.
Listen, I'm sitting there. I'm the same way, because there's things I'm like, ooh, we got to get to this. We don't. Man,
I
we
know.
need to take this thing on another.
Yeah, but it just seems like we're able to cover so many different topics with him.
Absolutely.
That was a blessing. You know, man, I'm so grateful. But we got to get on out of here.
Yep.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Porter. Welcome to the ASAP Elite family. I hope you guys loved this episode as much as I did. We look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good one.